All right, good evening, Golden, and welcome to our weekly live briefing. I'm Mayor Laura Weinberg, and with me again is our city manager, Jason Slowinski. Thank you for joining us live, or if you're watching this at another time on recording, thanks for tuning in. It doesn't seem like it's already been a week since I was last sitting here. Time has been going by quickly. And today was a full day as well. So I thought tonight I would just share a little bit about some of what I've heard at the various meetings that I attended today to give you a sense about the conversations and what is happening and what we're working on in Golden. This morning I attended the weekly Denver Region meeting for area mayors and county commissioners. We have been meeting since the very first closure orders were enacted by Denver. Denver moved first, and then the rest of our cities started feeling the impacts of their closure orders. And then the governor acted to apply the orders for the whole state. That particular circumstance made us realize that we need to act as a region, a metro area, because what happens in one city definitely can push the impacts across the borders to the surrounding cities. So we've been meeting weekly since then. And it's really been interesting how the focus of the meetings has shifted from the coordination on new closures and new public health orders to starting to discuss coordination on how to come out of those stay-at-home and emergency orders. We are all working closely as a region and with the governor to make sure that that he and the state is keeping our best interests as a metro area in mind when issuing those statewide orders, and also that our cities are working collaboratively during this next phase of what comes next and how do we move out of the emergency. I also attended the regular board meeting for Jefferson County Economic Development Corporation. I'm been the Golden representative on there for several years. And the Jeffco EDC is comprised of the cities in the county commissioners, the school district. We had Dr. Glass attend the board meeting today, and many of the largest companies in the county. It was really interesting today. We spent a lot of time it had been a month since we met, so a lot of time just getting updates on how everyone is doing. Certain industries have been minimally impacted, and some have even seen their business increase. And it was interesting to hear that side of the story from those industries. One of the banks that is on the board and was on the call mentioned something that I thought was really fascinating as we're wading through these federal stimulus programs, particularly the business loan program. I know personally with our business, we've been really frustrated by the pace of it, and this helped to put some things in perspective. This one bank typically does 30,000 loans all year, and in a 10-day period, they receive 15,000. Loan requests. So their pace of having to ramp up to process those loans has been incredible, and I would imagine that all of the banks are experiencing something similar. It was encouraging to hear from the businesses that they've all implemented changes to their operations to meet the state public health requirements. They're doing split shifts, increasing distancing, particularly in manufacturing and construction sites. They have employees working from home, and all of the other changes that they have implemented seem to be working well, and there seems to be some consideration that those changes may be ongoing, even after we're out of the crisis. The cities, including Golden and Jefferson County, the county commissioners, are all looking at budget impacts, trying to make projections, trying to forecast what will happen to our budgets, as well as all the cities are looking at programs that can support businesses in our cities. I also was happy to be able to join our Golden Chamber of Commerce today for their business check-in call. This was attended by smaller businesses in Golden, several of whom have had to close completely since the closure order. So we're going on about a month, 4 weeks, since they've had their doors open. This was a really great discussion and a great opportunity for me to hear their specific stories. Every business has a different situation, and really there are no two stories that are exactly the same. We have a number of businesses in our city, in our community, that are hurting and really wondering how they are going to keep their business viable. I have to commend the Chamber of Commerce. They have been doing an excellent job through their email updates of connecting businesses with resources, hosting virtual meetings to engage businesses across Golden, and really helping to keep our business community connected, even as they've had to close or reduce their operating hours. The conversation about business impacts and coming out of the crisis continued with the first meeting of our internal economic recovery team. I'm going to let the city manager discuss a little bit about what the city has been doing about budgeting. But really, I wanted to say I was reminded again in that meeting how strong the city's fiscal practices are. We maintain high reserves, we have conservative budgeting, and we took quick action to reduce expenses. We will have conversations in our upcoming city council meetings to review budget projections, as well as a timeline for current year budget revisions, as well as next year's budget process. My final discussion for this afternoon was with a new internal special events team. Colorado Public Health will continue to provide guidelines for public gatherings, and the city will follow all of those guidelines. Given the number of events typically held in Golden each summer and the length of time organizers need to plan for those events, this new team is working to recommend additional guidelines and policy that we can recommend to City Council for decision. We don't want to wait just on the state public health guidelines. We want to look at making recommendations for what is best for the city of Golden. We know that events will be different this summer, as it cannot be business as usual. Providing a common set of rules for all events will allow for better planning for organizers and a higher level of comfort in our community with the public health guidelines. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot we are working on and a lot we need to consider for how we will move out of the emergency orders. We are going to get through this crisis, and planning for that gradual reopening and return is important to keep our community safe and to have a strong overall economic recovery. Just want to say I hope that you all are doing well and you're also staying busy. I checked the weather right before we got here, and it looks like we're in for another snowstorm. So hope you were able to get out today for some exercise in the sun. I hope you didn't plant your garden yet. They always say wait till May because we're going to get some more snow. So stay warm, stay healthy. I am going to turn things over to the city manager, but we'll be here to answer questions later. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of updates for you all. Appreciate you joining us again this evening, and I look forward to the day where we can see each other in person again. But as the mayor said, we're kind of entering into the next phase of things related to this public health emergency. We're moving from management and response to the immediate public health emergency into more of the recovery phase. And the mayor outlined a number of things on the business front that we are looking at and working on. The focus of state government and public health officials right now is about how to approach reopening our cities and making sure that we're all on the same page with that and doing it in a way that's safe and responsible. And to that degree, I've been part of a number of conversations, as the mayor has, on how that will work going forward. And we're following those conversations very closely. In Golden, our focus is going to be how we transition really into this summer season, and focusing on all the things that really make Golden special in the months to come. The mayor mentioned the special event work and review that's going on. But we've also started talking about how we're going to move forward with summer rec programs, classes at the History Museum, other things that, other community gatherings, other things put on by our Parks and Recreation Department and the Golden Community Center. And as those facilities start to reopen in Golden, we no doubt will be looking at continuing to have in place some type of public health measures or social distancing, and we'll make sure that we provide an environment that you can all feel safe with and are proud of. We're following those health conversations. I know our team, our department head team is working on looking at the specific logistics of all those types of programs. They're going to look at public health guidance, obviously, and continue to talk with their colleagues around the county and other cities to implement best practices of what that might look like as we get into the summer months with different activities taking place. But our goal is to put on those activities that you all enjoy and are accustomed to, but albeit they might happen in a different forum or a different way. I wanted to make a mention of our budget approach. I know there's folks that may be wondering about the city's budget. I know you've all read in the news lately of cities cutting budgets or laying off employees or furloughing employees. And so I wanted to make a mention of kind of our approach and how we're looking at things. You know, the bad news is, like other government entities, you know, we're going to experience a reduction in sales tax revenue, and we'll take a hit related to that. And as a result, you know, we're going to need to look at and review and potentially postpone or delay some projects. Capital projects for sure will be affected to some degree. The good news is, you know, I think there's good news on several fronts. One, we're early in the year, which gives us an opportunity to make budget adjustments before the end of the year to make sure we come out on the right side of things. And, you know, we've just started the second quarter of the 2020 budget. And as we gather more data and collect more evidence of actually how things will be impacted, we will have the opportunity to make course corrections as necessary and even adjust our budgeting strategies for 2021. One of the things we did early on, and I think it was maybe even the first week of March before the first case even in our state was announced, we'd given direction to our department directors to hold on any non-essential expenditures and to implement a freeze of hiring on all vacant positions. So that's been in place for the last month and a half or so, and I expect on the expenditure side that we're going to see that practice continue for a while and also benefit us to a great degree in this current year budget. I think our city's diverse tax base is one of our assets in Golden. As we see potential businesses that are impacted by the COVID-19 and its current public health emergency, there's also businesses in our community that are doing well and are strong in this type of environment. And so that helps us kind of balance out the different impacts that we see from this current emergency. I think we're also benefited, unlike some of our larger neighbors, by our size as a community. It allows us to be a bit more nuanced in our approach of how we look at our budgeting. There's a number of agencies and cities across the metro area, quite frankly, that have taken an approach of just cutting things by 30% or something drastic like that. And our approach has been a little bit different. We have actually done an analysis of all of our top sales tax generating businesses and are looking at them individually on how they might be impacted and how their performance during this year might impact our own city budget. So that approach, I think, is a little bit going to be a little bit more exact on how our assumptions might be and what the total impact of the year, the budget this year will be. And I think it is a bit more direct and allows us to potentially be a bit more accurate on what we see the outcome of this current fiscal year look like. And the other piece of good news is that we're still finishing up the audit from our 2019 budget year, but as it relates to our expenditures last year, we came in under budget overall and closed out the budget year with a very healthy fund balance that we expect to be in the neighborhood of 30%. So a healthy fund balance, which is a priority of this city council and has been a priority of past city councils for our city, guards against the very kind of situation we find ourselves in. Those are our rainy day funds that are there to protect against major changes in the local economy of which we're seeing right now. So we feel very good about that. We feel good that with a combination of some expenditure reductions over the course of this year and potential use of some of that reserve fund balance, that we are going to be okay throughout the year and still be able to close out the year with a strong fund balance within our policy guidance. But that's an important part of having been fortunate to operate our city for many years, really, under conservative budget practices. That has put us in this position of being able to, one, not panic, two, make good and strategic decisions as we have better data, and ultimately successfully weather this storm. So we're going to provide a briefing to a high-level briefing to City Council most likely next week on April 23rd, in which we'll get into a bit more of the details of that, of the information. Hopefully be able to provide some better numbers to that, so you can see what that looks like. And but I feel overall, it's going to be an impact to our city budget, but I also believe it's not going to be catastrophic, and I also think it is something that our talented team of staff with the leadership of City Council undoubtedly will be able to manage. I'm pleased to continue to report that our critical city operations remain strong, continue to be strong. I have no immediate concerns with essential service delivery in our city. My continued thanks to all of our city employees for all of their hard work to make sure that in this time we really haven't missed a beat, and I'm really proud of them. One of the critical issues for city governments and all local governments and first responders is testing for first responders, and which we now have better access to thanks to Jeffco Sheriff's Office, who has set up a testing site at their facility for all area first responders. And so now we have access to that, which will allow us to make sure that folks who might suspect that they've come into contact with somebody that has COVID-19, our employees can then get tested more immediately and know whether they've been impacted or can get back into service. So we appreciate that. We're seeing a lot of positive reports, overall, Mayor, and I know you've been in on a lot of those calls as well. Positive reports from public health officials and state leadership that our overall hospitalizations have stabilized and even started to decrease in our Front Range metro area. It's all good news as we look at it, but it is important that we continue to stay strong and abide by those public health orders. That's what's making the difference here. That's what's getting us through this. And if we continue to do that, we're confident that the sooner we'll be able to lift restrictions. I know the state is working on additional data that will hopefully help give public health officials some insight on how people are actually recovering from confirmed cases. And that'll be helpful to understand how the next phase of things unfolds with public health restrictions. So we hope to have some guidance on additional, social distancing and public gatherings and what that looks like in the future. And as we get into these critical summer months, and we look forward to getting that from the state and being part of those conversations. So I encourage you to continue to stay strong, Golden, and keep wearing your masks and do your part, because it is making a difference, and I know we all appreciate it. I didn't have any additional briefing.
I have a couple more.
Go ahead.
Great. A couple more things before we open it up to answer questions. Right before we got on the air here, there was a special meeting of the Downtown Development Authority at 4 o'clock, and I was able to watch most of that and get confirmation here of the vote at the end of the meeting. Really want to thank our volunteers on the Downtown Development Authority, as well as those serving on the Golden Urban Renewal Authority Board, who met the other night. They both passed a new program which is going to be really exciting for our business community throughout the city of Golden. They have approved a new business recovery loan program of $1 million. The details are going to be worked out, and applications will be made available to businesses as soon as possible. But we needed to have the vote of both of those boards to commit that funding into the program to be able to offer businesses those really needed financial resources to get through this difficult time. So really pleased to be able to share that the vote occurred, and both boards have now approved that business recovery loan program. The other piece that Downtown Development Authority voted on, so the Business Recovery Loan Program helps out those businesses, but they also didn't want to forget about the nonprofits in our community who have seen a tremendous increase in need for their services and for their assistance. And so the Downtown Development Authority also approved $30,000 to go, $10,000 each to the Golden Backpack Program, the Christian Action Guild, and the Calvary Relief Fund for assistance for COVID impacts. So highest and best use of those dollars, whether it's food assistance, rental assistance, utility assistance, all those programs that our wonderful nonprofits in the community offer for our residents. They're going to get some additional funding thanks to the DDA. So thank you, Downtown Development Authority Board, for the meeting, for the discussion, and really for that additional funding that's going to help so many in our community, and both the business community and our resident community. The other update I wanted to share, which was from the governor's briefing today, this afternoon, that I did not listen to, but thankfully the Metro Mayor's Caucus sent an update to all of us, and that was the sharing of the 6 indicators that the state is looking for to lift the stay-at-home order. I'm sure those will be all over the news this evening, as that has gone out from his briefing. But please know that the Department of Public Health has identified the indicators that they're looking for. A big piece of that is the ability to monitor and protect the communities through testing, contact tracing, isolating, and supporting those who are positive or exposed. So that's the testing and tracing piece, so that the stay-at-home orders can be lifted, and only those identified as exposed are isolated, and not the entire community. So that's a big piece of it, as well as several other indicators they are looking for. It's great for us to all be able to look at those and be able to understand how the state is doing and progressing in those areas, particularly the important areas of testing and tracing. Some of the other indicators are ability to prevent infection in people who are at risk for more severe COVID-19, the ability of the hospital and health systems to handle surges, the ability to develop therapeutics to meet the demand, the ability for businesses, schools, and childcare facilities to support physical distancing, and the ability to determine when to reinstitute certain measures, such as the stay-at-home orders if necessary. So that last piece is more of a policy piece, I think, but those are all great things for us to understand that are being worked on to enable the state to lift those stay-at-home orders that we're operating under. So wanted to share that piece as well since that came out this afternoon. But those were the two additional ones I had, so.
Excellent. If you have questions, you want to submit them, feel free to email covid19@cityofgolden.net or on Facebook Live. And Mayor, we did get two questions earlier. One from Joy, who asked, "What are your thoughts about summer events happening? What are your thoughts about summer events happening this summer?" And she's involved with Buffalo Bill Days. And also volunteers for other events. And I know you sat in on a meeting today. So.
Yeah, Joy, thank you for the question. And I touched on it just a little bit, but events are a big part of summertime in Golden, and that's why we wanted to get together to start reviewing that and not wait on the state public health directive, because we have so many important long-term events that have been going on in Golden, and we need to be able to provide guidance sooner rather than later. Events will be different. There is no doubt in my mind that we will have restrictions on large gatherings, restrictions on in-person types of activities, things like, events that have had games for children, bounce houses and electronic games, or craft tables and sharing of supplies, or things where we're bringing a lot of people close together will need to change. And so that's what our special events team is looking at. We just met for the first time this afternoon. We have some follow-up things we're going to work on and meet again next week. The goal of that is to provide a set of recommendations to the full city council for policy changes for events for this year. So I don't have any specifics other than to say it will be different, there will be restrictions, and we will work as fast as we can to make sure that the organizers and all the participants understand what that will be.
We have one additional question here, and maybe I'll just hold that one, and in the event we need to wait 30 or 40 seconds to see if there are any last-minute questions out there. But in the meantime, have we had any that have come in?
We do have several questions that came in. First, we want to say hello to Mary, who is watching from Texas.
Hi, Mary.
The first question is, has Golden considered ways to conduct testing for COVID-19 in the community?
I'll give my perspective on it. So Golden, from what I've participated in as a city, we are not looking at doing our own testing. The work that we do in public health relies on our county public health. We do not have our own in Golden, and so that is our closest partner, is our county public health agency. That doesn't mean to say that public health would not have testing sites in Golden. Certainly the county sheriff's location for first responders is in the city of Golden. It is not being stood up by the city of Golden or any of our departments, but it is located here in the city. I also know of other healthcare organizations that are setting up testing sites. The one that I'm thinking of is just outside city limits, but it is through a physician practice that has many locations in the metro area. They're standing up a testing location in Denver West, which is outside city limits, but still a Golden address. And they are doing that as a private healthcare organization. So the city is not spearheading any of those efforts, but that's not to say that there won't be testing sites or locations that are in or near the city of Golden.
The next question is, what about distancing in the jail?
So I have some information. I don't know if I had shared this last time or not, but let me try to find it quickly. The jail has significantly reduced its population. And actually, I think this was from a briefing that I sat in last Friday. I just want to try to find the numbers for you. But the jail has significantly reduced its population, and I think it was about, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but
I've got the number.
do you?
I do.
Okay.
From your email.
Let's work.
So this was Friday. The jail population is now 644 inmates, which is down from 1,182 on March 9th. So
So almost in half of what it was, and I think they continue to do social distancing and reducing the population. They have reopened the seventh floor of the jail, which had previously been closed. So if they have inmates at the jail who are experiencing symptoms, they can isolate them and keep them separate from the rest of the population.
And I'll just add to that, the Jefferson County mayors and county commissioners are meeting on Friday. And when I met with the Jeffco mayors earlier this week, we did say that we wanted to discuss the jail as one of the topics on the agenda for the Friday meeting with the county. So I'm hoping that we will be able to discuss not just what's happening right now, but what will be happening in the jail going forward, even as some of the orders are lifted.
Next question is, has there been any consideration for accelerating plans for shovel-ready projects such as Highway 93 improvements in North Golden to be ready if the federal government offers an infrastructure stimulus package?
It's a great question, and I know there's a lot of money flying around in DC, so we don't know what's going to happen, and particularly an infrastructure package. There's been a lot of momentum behind that for some time, but it isn't necessarily going to provide help to the industries most impacted. So it's anybody's guess at this point, I think, if we will see an infrastructure bill. However, having said that, the city is always looking at ways that we can position ourselves to receive any federal infrastructure dollars when they become available. The project that is most likely to go forward would be the one we had already planned for this year, which is the design phase for Heritage Road and Highway 6. That is the next project. We have already looked at that as scheduling that design piece for this year, provided CDOT still has the funding and Jefferson County still has some of the local match. We would still go forward with that project this year. It is only the design, so many millions more would be needed through CDOT and with a local match to actually do the construction. But if federal infrastructure dollars were available, we would really be in a great position having the design already completed to be eligible to receive that funding.
And we talked a little bit briefly, Mayor, earlier today on our economic recovery team, how important it will be for us to continue to monitor these federal bills as they come forward with potential stimulus dollars for local government. So it's a great question and something we certainly have been talking about.
So along the same lines, more of a comment than a question that we got through email that said that they believe that we need to can the Coors property, the 311 project. The city budget is going to be a disaster for the next 2 years, was the comment. Didn't know if maybe you could address that.
I'd be happy to, or do you want to? Yeah, there's nothing budgeted for that, and there's no project that council has approved in terms of a large capital expenditure on the land purchase. So the purchase went through last year. That is already done. We own it. We already have completed that aspect of it. The part of what do we do with it is really in an ideation phase with the Heart of Golden 2020 project. And that is not a significant high expense nor a large capital project to complete the Heart of Golden 2020. So I think that that effort of what would we want will continue. And we will make a decision on city council at the appropriate time as to what the next steps are before any capital budget decisions are made.
And I think just another point of information, that we plan on having something to City Council on what the next steps of Heart of Gold in 2020 could look like before the end of the month. And we'll be asking City Council to weigh in on that and provide direction to staff on how we move forward from here.
Next question. What is the city policy on when you spend rainy day funds to support core city functions, Golden residents, and our local businesses?
I don't know, there may be like a written policy. I'll just tell you what I know from practice and from sitting up here for the last 6 years. The city targets reserves of 20%. So as the city manager mentioned, we are actually going into this year above that. So we do have a practice of trying to maintain around 20% reserves and spending above that, spending for the good of the community on capital projects, on needed infrastructure, on things that the community desires. And so that has been the way we've done things, maintain that conservative reserve of 20% and spend what's over that on the projects that we have as a city council have voted as most important. I believe the city is allowed to go down to a 10% reserve. So the practice has not been or has not needed to go that low, but the city is allowed to, I guess, maintain just a 10% reserve. I think from the standpoint of most of the people I've served up here with, and certainly from city staff, has been, to operate conservatively, delay projects where appropriate, but spend on the things that don't make sense to delay or the things that will provide the most benefit right now. That's why we have the reserve and why we have that rainy day fund, to have those funds available. And it doesn't make any sense to not use them in the situation where there could be a lot of good that could be done if only there was funding.
Yeah, and I would just add, and I agree with the mayor, I would just add that, those funds are there to support the operations of government, just like your savings account or checking account at home is. When your water heater breaks and you don't anticipate that emergency, or your furnace goes out and you need to have it fixed or replaced, you have some resources to draw upon. The same is true for how we budget, and over the years have budgeted conservatively, as the mayor said, well above our minimum fund balance policy, and we do it exactly for cases like this. It won't be decisions that are made in a vacuum, and obviously we'll be taking all of that budget information to City Council and getting direction and having that conversation more broadly, but that's what those funds are there for. One-time expenditures are a lot easier to delay, but they don't have the same budget impact that the ongoing expenditures do, so the fund balance is important for that.
Next question, there's a comment and then two questions within the one comment. So first is, please mandate the use of gloves and masks by the employees in the grocery stores. And then the question is, where are new COVID-19 cases coming from? And are those cases in the prison being included in the numbers?
I guess I'll address the mandate piece. That's part of working collaboratively across the metro area and with the governor. We have one King Soopers in Golden, but there are King Soopers all outside of our city limits and around the region. The ability to make those decisions on large chains or large entities, such as a grocery store, are best come from the state or across a whole metro area. To have one city acting on its own creates confusion. It creates enforcement challenges. And I think it really is best handled in a broader sense. It also has limited effect if it's just in one city and not broadly done. I know there has been a push by some folks to have the governor make that a mandate instead of a suggestion. And it certainly sounds like, the individual asking that question would be in that camp. That may happen. I don't know. But certainly I believe that it would be best handled a bit broader than just trying to make a policy specific just within the city borders. From a public health standpoint and impact, the benefit's going to be much greater if it's a much larger decision than here.
And with respect to the question about the cases in the jail, my assumption is that they're tied to a Golden address, as these folks are housed in Golden. I can try to verify that with Jeffco Public Health. But as of Friday, and I did finally find my numbers here, but as of Friday, there were only there were 27 inmates that were being held on the 7th floor quarantine. Only 7 were showing signs or symptoms of COVID-19. I don't believe any had been tested positive at that point in time. So just gives you an idea. I'm not even sure that there was a positive case tied to the jail, but I will find out that if there is, whether they're tied to a Golden address.
Was there another part to that, or was that it?
Just where are the new COVID-19 cases coming from? And I think just we don't get the details on how things were transmitted necessarily or where they're coming from. Just the fact that there are a certain number of cases in our community.
Yeah, and I think the county public health site does have some statistics county-wide, it might be citywide, about, is it from community spread? Is it from a known source, so a family member, or still unknown? They do track in a few buckets, but it's pretty general.
Next question. Do you still plan to move forward with the plan to demolish the Coors office building? What will that process cost?
So we'll take a look at that as part of our discussion of Heart of Golden 2020. At this point, we're still in the bidding phase, so we haven't taken the next step of the demolition. The demolition part itself is funded through the bond issue, or the COP issue, that the debt that we had arranged to fund the entire purchase and the building improvements, which end up being the demolition. So that part is worked in with the overall COP issue. There's a cost to it, but it's allocated as part of that issue and isn't something that we had budgeted separately. But that will be part of the conversation we certainly have with City Council when we bring that issue forward.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. It's not part of the general fund. So it's not dollars that could be used for a different project. If we decide not to do it, those dollars stay where they are. They can't be reallocated. So I think there might be some confusion about which projects can be delayed because of revenue impacts, and that really is a separate conversation in terms of, we will have a conversation on City Council about Heart of Golden and next steps. We will also have a conversation on Council about which capital projects or which projects should be delayed because of budget changes.
And then we have the same question asked again that you were holding on to. And so if you would like to address that one.
Sure. So Lon had asked in an email, what is the best way a Golden property owner can donate funds that are helping downtown Golden businesses and or Golden resident individuals? And Lon is currently not physically in Golden, but would like to help in some way.
And Lon, thank you, for the question, for everybody who wants to contribute to help others. So we touched on briefly, the need is great for businesses and for residents. The impact of all the closures, the economic impact has had many effects for folks here in Golden. And so I'd love people wanting to help and contribute in some way. We've really, for several weeks, probably a month now, we've had one URL. We've had helpgoldennow.org, which is really the best and easiest place to go to figure out where you can donate. One of the funds that is available is through Be Golden, and that is listed on there as a place to donate. That is helping both businesses with our local restaurants, as well as residents in need who are facing food insecurity. So donations to that fund are helping to provide restaurants with funds to produce meals, covering their costs of the food and the labor to produce the meals. And those meals are being provided through volunteers who are picking them up, who are bringing them to folks who are in need right now. So that is one place where you can go. There is a page for Be Golden, your best place to go to find out about different programs and find out about different opportunities to donate or volunteer. Again, is through that helpgoldennow.org webpage.
Just had another question come in asking for a little bit of clarification regarding the Coors property. Says, is Jason saying there is no expense or cost to the city over the next 2 years in regards to the lease's purchase agreement on the Coors property?
So I'll try to say it a better way than I did. The COP issue, the debt service issue, was used to pay for both the acquisition of the property and for potential demolition of the property. There are some costs related to building maintenance. There aren't nearly as many as we initially anticipated. There are some related to just general upkeep or heat of the building. We don't want to entirely turn off the heat during the colder months. But there isn't a lot of overall expenditures related to the building, and the demolition cost as part of that debt service issue, it's not funds that we can then go and use for, as the mayor said, for operations or something else. So the demolition cost would not impact the rest of the city's budget for operations or other community projects. So I hope that clarifies it a little bit, but when council made the decision to acquire the property, council considered a number of things, including the funding source, how it would work, what would happen if we were in a situation where we all of a sudden lost a lot of tax revenue, and as it turns out, we are now. Didn't anticipate it at the time, but we thought about it at the time. And what was important is that when the decision was made, we made the decision to fund it in a way that we could make the payments, that it wouldn't impact the rest of the budget for our operations, and that it was coming from a source of funding and budget in a way where we were just essentially replacing debt service payments that had already fallen off the books. So, and that was the smart way to approach it.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is we already took on the debt service, so in a home, you have the mortgage of a certain amount. You're required to pay that back. Whether you use some of that money to replace the roof or not, you have that same amount that you took out to pay back. We have that fixed amount over the coming years to pay back, whether we demolish the building or not. The additional expense over the next however many months is going to be if the building stays as it is, empty, and the amount that the city needs to pay each month to keep an empty building there. That's the additional cost that is dependent on how long that building stays standing.
And the future costs, and I would only add the future costs for new buildings, a new civic center, new cultural amenities, trails, whatever else ends up part of a longer-term plan is nothing that the city has currently committed to. It's all, as the mayor said earlier, still in the idea phase, and that's been the part of the Whole Heart of Golden process that we kicked off earlier this year. But none of those expenditures related to that that might even be imagined or not imagined at this point have been committed to. So that'll be a decision that we'll have to make going forward of how we approach that both this year and beyond.
No more, we have a few comments, but no more questions at this time.
Great. Well, a lot of great questions tonight. Really appreciate hearing from you all and having the opportunity to both get the questions and provide hopefully some answers. As always, though, if you still have more questions, if we didn't answer it quite as fully, or maybe we didn't interpret your question quite right, please do reach out. Available, email, phone, happy to discuss further. There is a lot of information available online through Guiding Golden, the city website, the helpgoldennow.org URL. The communications team has been doing a great job of updating the resources, updating the information as things change. I know we're only midway through April, but there was a lot of good information in your April Informer that you received at the beginning of April, and there will be a lot of additional information in the May Informer that you will receive on May 1st. So please do keep tuning into this and keep reaching out in the other communication channels through the city, because things are changing pretty steadily. We will have a city council meeting. It'll be our first in a month. We'll have our first April meeting on next Thursday. And so we will be holding it virtually, but there'll be opportunity for public comment on that as well. And we'll start getting back to, I think, a more regular schedule of public meetings going into May. So there'll be additional opportunities to kind of tune in and provide comments and feedback as well. I did want to just plug for Ward 4 residents, you should have received your ballots. Please do. It's the shortest ballot you'll ever receive. There's one question. Please do fill it out, return it. There is a drop box here that you can access at City Hall. I think there's also one at the county building. You still have time to mail it back if you remember to put a stamp on it. Otherwise, it won't get there. So Ward 4, please do vote. The election deadline is April 28th. So that's all I wanted to make sure I mentioned. I don't know if you have any parting thoughts.
Just have one more final question,
Okay.
sorry, that just came in. Just wondering if you could clarify, is there an actual cost defined for the demolition of 311, or has that not yet been defined?
There is a cost to it, obviously, to take down a building of that size, but it hasn't been defined yet because we're still in the process of bidding out what that would look like. In fact, we're not even in the bidding out process yet. We're still in the planning for that bidding process. So we don't know exactly what the cost is.
Okay. And then several people just thanked you for the information you're giving tonight.
And we appreciate it. And Mayor, I guess we'll plan again on being here next Wednesday,
Sure.
and then for our city council meeting.
Yeah.
So thank you, Golden. We appreciate you watching, and stay safe.
Thanks.